God damn it, this is a filler week, isn't it?
My history with the Dynasty Warriors series harbours back to around 2008 or 2009, whichever year it was. My stepbrother would be staying with us every alternate weekend or so, and he and his dad would play the games together amongst others. I never joined in because I was a miserable git who didn't like admitting when something looked fun. I don't know why. I feel like if I don't discover a thing is fun on my own, I would have just refused to give it the time of day. I'm not even sure why I was like that. I still kind of am, actually, which is the messed up part. I still weirdly don't like admitting to liking something that someone else turned me onto, and I just don't get why. It's such a weird mindset to be stuck in. I'm trying to get over that, though. I've been largely conquering this weird headspace the past few years, which is nice. It's still an uphill battle, though. I didn't pick up and play a Dynasty Warriors title until about 2015. I desired a third-person game with a character builder, and after a Google session I wound up with Dynasty Warriors 7 Empires, so that sated me for a time. I found the game oddly charming. Yeah, it wasn't graphically impressive, and it had a few crashes here and there, but it was fun, and it did things that I didn't realise I wanted the game to do with the empire building it had. Keep in mind, I didn't know what the Empires spin-off series was before then. I just thought the game was called Empires. I just thought that was its subtitle. I then moved to Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires when I switched to the PS4, simply because Sony are a massive bunch of wankers and made it impossible for the PS4 to run older games because reasons. Oh, of course the PS4 can stream older games as long as you pony up the dough, greedy scumbags. Anyway, Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires is what we're covering today, which you know, because the title says it. This was pointless.
Just 1 week. 1 week where you don't take the cheap shots at the industry. That would be great.
I'll stop doing it when it stops being fun. If you don't know, the Dynasty Warriors games are loosely based on ancient Chinese history, with several real-world heroes being playable characters. Of course, it's all run through the anime filter, as the game was developed by a Japanese studio. I mean, maybe the real-life Lu Bu could command Sith lightning powers through his halberd, or maybe the real Cao Cao was able to summon several clones of himself to join his attacks, but I have some doubts here and there. Wait, is it Cao Cao or Cao Cao? I've never actually heard the name spoken. The games see the player take on hordes of enemy combatants in a hack-and-slash format, with some elements of strategy thrown in there for good measure, though calling them combatants is being generous. Most enemies just stand around like gormless twats and just let you cut them down. I almost feel bad. It's like that old fish in a barrel line, only at least the fish could sort of flop around a bit, but I digress. Unlike the base games, the Empire spin-offs allow the player to build their own kingdom and take over the land as whomever they please. Or if they so desire, they can build their own officer and fight with them instead, which I personally always do. Nothing against any Dynasty Warrior character, I just like playing as my own person. Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires is of course no different in this respect. You can still make your own character or choose an existing one, and you can conquer the land like a boss. Wait, before we get any further. If you enjoy these videos, then don't forget to like, leave a comment and subscribe for future videos. If you want to, you can support the channel further by going to patreon.com/RonicaReviews and pledging £1 a month, which will help me to keep building the channel and bringing you content, and it will also get you some nifty benefits. You'll get 24 hours early access to new reviews, a shout out at the end of videos, and you'll get to suggest new games for me to cover. But what if you want something more tangible back for your support? Then you want to head over to ronicareviews.tmore.com to get yourself some merch. We have several t-shirts for you to browse, a couple of tote bags, and even a jigsaw puzzle. Also, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like. You'll find links to everything here in the description below. Now, on with the video. Okay, now we're good. Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires takes place in the late Han Dynasty, or I think it's the Three Kingdoms period. I'm not an expert on ancient Chinese history, if I'm being honest with you. I can barely remember what happened in England yesterday. Fuck, I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast this morning. The game has a few modes for you to choose from when you boot it up. You've got the main Empire mode, free mode, and edit mode, and also the options menu, which does a bit more than just adjusting the brightness and the sound of the game. This Y is I bring up. It's that now. There we go. We're keeping that. Edit mode is where you can put together custom officers to play as, or meet in the main Empire mode. Whilst I do think the game is a little too stringent on just how you can dress your female officers, I do like that the feature is there. I also like that as you unlock certain things in Empire mode, you also unlock new ways to build said officers, but we'll save the details for later. You can adjust your skin, height, hair, choose the outfit that you want, choose a weapon that looks the most fun, and even test ride the characters in a little mock battle to see how they handle. It's a good idea to do this because if you're not familiar with how each weapon in this game plays, then you might end up picking a cool looking sword only to find out that it attacks with all the grace and effectiveness of a stoned cat with a buzzsaw. You can also throw together a custom banner, some custom soldiers, and a personal warhorse. All of these options are a bit limited, but it's nice that you can do this. You can also set up custom scenarios, which again, we'll touch on that more later, but you've got more patience than I do if you can be asked to deal with that one. I love custom level making and all that, but I found this to be tedious. Next up is the free mode, where you can play a single battle with whichever heroes you like. You can choose what objectives you want to achieve and where everyone is, what the relative difficulty will be, etc. Basically, it just lets you play a quick battle without needing to build an empire around it. You can do this online as well, which is nice, playing with friends friends can be fun. I did not get to do that this time around because most of my friends have moved on with their lives when it comes to video games. I have trouble letting go of the past, you see. Finally, let us discuss Empire Mode. Empire Mode is the main game mode. In this mode you choose an officer and then you set out into the world to take over China. Before you do that though, you have to choose a scenario, and this is sort of the scenario thing I was talking about earlier that I skipped, even though I could have just told you what it was there. The main two differences between each scenario is exactly what unique event takes place at this era, and exactly how the land is divided up between the kingdoms when you start the game. As I say, you can choose whatever character you want. You can choose to be a ruler if you like. If you do so, you don't have to spend the first few in-game months building your army and recruiting allies because you'll already have one. However, I quite like the stage of building your own empire and army, so I usually do that. That's just how I roll, honey. If you do play as a custom hero, you'll have no choice but to start the game as a free officer, but from there you get to decide what you do. Will you serve another nation as a loyal retainer? Will you betray your leader for the power? Or will you set out to build your own nation with blackjack and hookers? It's up to you. The game is divided into two sections. You have the restful periods where you can make preparations like recruiting officers, gathering resources, and forging alliances. You can also use this time to get close with your officers and raise your friendship stat with them. They're less likely to up and fuck off one day if you keep them happy, so do try to keep them happy. If you love them enough, you can even become sworn siblings or marry one of them. Marrying them gives you a good chance of getting a baby out of the mess who, after a period of rather rapid gestation and growth, will be able to join you in battle one day. Speaking of battles, let's talk about the battle part of this game. You can engage in various forms of battle, from basic quests which serve to get you some resources and raise your friendship with various officers across the land, or engage in full-on invasions to conquer the land. Mwahaha! I don't know why I'm evilly laughing, I'm usually quite a benevolent ruler. The game is won when the player successfully takes over all of China by conquering enemy capitals and taking their land from them. You will lose if your nation falls, or if 50 in-game years happen to pass, but I've never even come close to such a lose condition. The battles are the typical Dynasty Warriors thing. You're there and so are 10 million other people, and you need to carve your way through, capturing bases, defeating officers, and making sure your own people don't get themselves killed like the boneheads they are. If you're invading, then the chances are your goal will either be to defeat the enemy commander of that region or just capture the main camp if there isn't a commander present. If you're defending your land from the attack of another, then all you need to do is hold out for a while or defeat several enemy officers, which can force the enemy force to withdraw, having suffered too much damage. Combat is simple. You can press square to hit, and you can occasionally press triangle to do a special attack. If you're using your character's favourite weapon, then you can do a bonus attack during your combos, and it's always a good thing to do, plus it looks quite cool. If you see an enemy officer, sometimes you'll see one of these symbols above their head, either an exclamation mark or a blue thing. If you see the blue thing, it means your weapon is highly effective against them. If you see the red exclamation mark, it means your weapon is ineffective against them. Well, supposedly. It's not a complex system, just keep two of the same weapon on you at all times with a different element and you'll be fine. I'm really not sure why it exists, if I'm being honest with you. Unless the enemy has the exclamation mark above their head, they will actively block your attacks, thus reducing your weapon's effectiveness anyway. When they have the advantage, they might hit a little bit harder, but they don't seem to block anywhere near as much, so it's quite easy to just kick the shit out of them. Before the battle starts, you can set some custom objectives for yourself to complete, like capture a specific base or defeat a specific officer. Completing all of them will help you level up the character that you're using and raise their stats. You can also reinforce your bases at this time to turn some into special bases for bonus traits. Anytime during the battle, if you're playing as the commander, which you don't have to, you can select another character before getting into the battle screen, but if you are the commander, you can open your map whenever you like and issue orders to your subordinates. Be sure to keep an eye on your underlings because they can go from dominating to being dominated like that in no time at all. They really are the master of the switch. During the battle, you can also make use of stratagems. I always like to have at least one that could heal the player and one that can quickly return you to your main camp. The latter because if the main camp falls, you lose the fight, so being able to quickly get back there and defend it is vital. But there are plenty more to choose from. A really good one to always aim towards getting is Asura's Wrath because it helps you really quickly conquer bases. When you attack an enemy camp, you'll need to defeat a certain number of dudes to capture it, with more dudes constantly spawning in until you finally deplete the base's strength and then it becomes yours. Some of these bases have these giant spot turrets within them, and each of them equate to 100 troops. Asura's Wrath allows you to destroy these turrets with a single attack, which really helps when you're trying to conquer bases quickly. That's why it's one of the best stratagems to have. There are plenty more good ones, like the one that completely recovers your Mushu gauge to let you do your special attacks, or there's the one that quickly teleports an allied officer towards you to help you with some backup. You can learn more stratagems by building academies across the land during the Empire phase, or sometimes your officers will just give you a stratagem because they like you. Back on the subject of bases for a minute, you may have seen that some troops in the bases are labelled as base captains, and I don't know why. They do nothing special at all.
Well, surely they do something.
Now, I googled it a few times, but I couldn't get a clear answer, so I guess they're just kind of there. They might maybe be equal to like 3 or 4 extra troops, so killing them is supposed to make the job quicker, maybe? I didn't notice any significant difference though, so... Sometimes at the end of a battle you'll realise that you've actually captured one of the enemy's officers, and if you like you can try to recruit them. Failing that, they can be released or executed. It's up to you what you do, but executing enemies makes you be seen as a bit more evil. Who would have thunk it? There is something akin to a morality system in this game. It's not particularly deep, just some quests make you look more evil and so do some actions. When you get too good or too evil, this can unlock special titles for your character. It can also determine what special skills you can use during the non-battle mode. Nothing wrong with that, granted, it serves a purpose, and when you unlock certain titles like Loyal General or Grand Bastard of the Fuckwads, then this title can be applied to newly created officers in the edit mode. The more stratagems you buy, the more you can apply to the new peeps as well. It's an incentive for people like me to replay the game over and over. At least it is until you realise that when you complete the campaign you are rewarded with bonus points. These points can let you buy weapons in the options menu, so you can bypass needing to build the forges in the main game to purchase weapons, or you can use the points to unlock all the best gear and skills immediately when you start a new game, which kind of sucks the fun out of it a bit. I personally find that it's more satisfying to take your time and build the empire bit by bit, constructing the right facilities and saving up for the super shiny sword that you wanted, rather than just outright buying it at the beginning of the game and just using it forever. I've played this game many times over. The Empire mode campaigns can be completed in a few hours each, but I do like mixing up what way of life I'll be aiming for in the next life over, and where to start, who I will recruit and who I'll marry this time. These are all important questions. The game is not amazing though. The combat can be repetitive as fuck, and the game doesn't balance its difficulty very well. A lot of enemies are just way too easy to defeat. Even the officers can be ridiculously easy to just take down. I took down Lu Bu here on one of his attacks, and it's rather important to note that this is a battle where you're advised to avoid him because he's supposedly too tough to defeat. Then later a tiny kingdom full of absolute nobodies was able to kick my ass up and down the garden path. Up and down the garden path? Fuck it, that works. Late game can get annoying when you own a large enough territory, because if you don't fight off all the invasions then you'll lose areas, and if you don't have a decent selection of officers to begin with then you'll exhaust all your top dogs, which drastically reduces their effectiveness, so you'll be left fighting with the peons. You can promote certain officers to prefects if you like and give them territories to watch over, though I can't tell if this actually makes a difference or not. At one point I was being invaded in two places at once by two separate kingdoms, neither of which seemed to want to back down, though a quick diplomacy session with one turned them into an ally to stop the attack. Then together we defended my other territory so effectively that we even managed to capture a powerful enemy officer who was part of the invasion, who I then recruited, so at least it could lead to some interesting outcomes. I do rather like how organically things can unfold here. You might be up against the famous heroes of the era, or you might be at war with a kingdom founded by a nobody who has taken over half the land, which can be rather interesting. Though something else I'd like to bring up is that there is no English voice acting anywhere in the game, unlike in the mainline series, which is a shame for someone like me. I'm not a very strong reader. I also don't care for just how limited some of the strategy elements are. Don't get me wrong, they all work and they're nice to have, but it's just picking from a menu with very little to spice things up. Occasionally you'll get an option which will see the player in a different room discussing things with people, so there's that at least. It is weird though just how scaled back this game feels compared to its predecessor. Here's an example. In Dynasty Warriors 7, if you wanted to buy and customise things, you needed to head into town and speak with the right merchant. It was nothing amazing, granted, but I did enjoy the break from the menus that it provided, and I like the idea that our ruler goes out into town and mingles with the commoners. The game is also not the most stable thing ever. I've experienced many crashes whilst playing this game, and whilst attacking these towers, the frame rate drops like your mum's panties whenever she sees a gaggle of sailors. The edit mode has really boring background music, and it quickly gets on my tits. You can't even change it like you can with the background music anywhere else in the game, which is annoying. The scenario editor is tedious and just not really worth engaging with. There's so little life to many of these cutscenes your character could be a part of. Sure, it's nice to see your custom officer there, but they're always doing the exact same thing and saying the same thing no matter what voice you've given them. It's not a bad game overall, but I can't really say that it's anything particularly special. The hack and slash combat and the large scale battles are fun enough, and I do like the inclusion of the strategy elements and the kingdom builder, but nothing seems to be bringing its A game, you know? Still, it's better than Dynasty Warriors 9, but then again, so is being sexually assaulted by 3 raccoons in a gimp suit, so it's not saying a lot.
That was... I mean... what?
Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires is fine as games go. You might have fun with it, you might not. Who knows? Not I. Who cares? Probably no one. Also, I should tell you now that next week is also basically just going to be filler. We're looking at Sackboy: A Big Adventure, though at least it's a little more relevant, I'd say. I might even remember to talk about just how much of a disappointment the PC release of the game was.
You're only saying that now because you already wrote the script for that. And can't be asked to revise it, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, until next time, I hope you all have a good week. I love you all. Bye bye. The game sees the player take on hordes of enemy combatants. Edit mode is where you put together custom officers to play as, or you can... Why? Why? Brain, why? What was... Next up we have the free mode where you can play a single battle with... Next up we have free mode where you can play a single battle with... Do you enjoy these little sounds I end up making? They happen more frequently than the bloopers would let you realise. If you...